ecosystem that there are other areas where a job that allowed me to stay in LA as opposed to what I wanted.
Through a number of different departments. I started in media sales.
Well, I think that as we've seen many companies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Class E podcast. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill, the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Faculty Fellow here at Furman University. Thank you for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you through a partnership between Furman Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department at Furman University. We are continuing our special summer series, Pathfinders in Purple. It's a series in which we talk with Furman professors who are also entrepreneurs in their own right. And today we have Brent and Lorie Nelson and Chef David Porras. Brent is a professor in the Politics and International Affairs Department here at Furman. He's an author and served on the SC Educational Television Commission under former Governor Nikki Haley and on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting Board under President Obama. He is co-owner of the Oak Hill Café and Farm, and he is married to our next guest, Lorie Nelson, who is a former lab manager in the Earth Environmental Sciences Department here at Furman. She's also a Furman grad and, of course, co-owner in the Oak Hill Café and Farm. And our third guest is David Porras, originally from Costa Rica. David is the co-owner and executive chef at Oak Hill Café and Farm here in Greenville, South Carolina. David has a culinary arts degree from Latina University, French Culinary Institute in New York, and has a master's in cuisine techniques and products from the renowned Basque Culinary Center in San Sebastián, Spain. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
So as you might have guessed it, listeners, the thing that we are going to discuss today and the thing that these three folks have in common is the Oak Hill Café and Farm. They are all co-owners in this venture, and all of you have very impressive backgrounds, but they are quite varied. Brent, I'll start us off with this question. How did you guys all get connected? I mean, obviously you and Lorie are married.
That helps.
Yeah.
I really think Lorie ought to answer this question because it's her vision that really got this whole thing going, and I've been tagging along. So Lorie, why don't you tell the story?
How did we all get together? Well, I had a vision for a farm to table, a true farm to table restaurant in Greenville. And that's another story. But to keep it short, I met David through his wife, Karen, who is a professor in earth and environmental sciences. And she came for a one-year position. I was looking for a chef. People said, well, Karen has a husband who is a chef. And we met at the beginning of the year party and talked for several hours about our vision and how we really had a similar vision about what we thought was important in a restaurant and how we treated food and where our food came from. David, do you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it was very interesting 2 hours. I think 2.5 hours. You know, this is what I would like to do here, open a small restaurant. And then we left it like that. And it was like, oh, cool. If we move here, you know, we do something. And then, you know, that was that way we met each other, always like with the beer in the hand.
Right. So how long was it between that first conversation and you guys sitting down saying, okay, we're really going to do this?
Lorie texted me, or we were talking back and forth, right, Lorie?
Yeah.
Over the phone. How do we do this? You know, how do we work this out? And I was very at the beginning I wasn't very sure because I had a bad experience in my country. So I was like, I don't want to put myself in another situation, and then I'm not, you know, and then
right, you don't know these people yet.
Right. He didn't know me from Adam.
I mean, with the work environment with my wife. So
Yeah.
why not? I can trust 100%. So I was like, okay, it's fine. And then she told me to come to Greenville, which is I've never been, you know, in Greenville. And I came. It was snow a day. It snowed the day before, so it's kind of pretty. And I went to see the house and the property, and we went crazy.
He was really surprised. I had looked into this property prior to him coming and actually purchased it in October of 2016. I think you came somewhere in November or December to see it.
I think it was November. We were just like, oh, that means we're moving. That means we need to look into do something. And I told my wife, as soon as we know we're going to settle in someplace, I want to open something small. Same concept, same everything. And we ended up opening Oak Hill Cafe.
So, Lorie, you guys already had purchased the land in 2016. What was that? Did you purchase the land with the idea of putting the restaurant there? And was the actual house already there? Or did you build it from the ground up?
No, that house was built in 1941 or two.
Oh, very cool.
And it was owned by the same family. And at the end, there were two sisters that had never gotten married, and they lived there until they basically died. And the family decided to put it, since it was on Poinsett Highway, they wanted to sell it as a commercial property because, you know, on that side of the street, there was really not too many houses. So it was a nice piece of land. It's 2.5 acres almost. And I wanted to have a farm on site. And so even though it was a hill of clay, there was enough room for a small farm in the back. You know, we got a lot of advice about the property. Most people thought we were crazy. You're going to do what with this? But it was a well-built house. They thought possibly it would cost us less if we just raised the whole property and started over, because, you know, you have to redo all the plumbing, electrical, everything. We wanted the charm of the house. And we wanted to make it more of a homey atmosphere, like you might be on a farm, you know? So we just kept going forward with what we had. And we found some incredible people to work with. You know, in the end, it was a ton of work, and the county put a lot of roadblocks down, but we got through them little by little.
Yeah, that's all you can do is little by little. That brings me to my next step, though, because it's not a cheap venture to renovate a house and make it restaurant worthy, right? And to make sure it's up to code and everything. How did you, and lots of entrepreneurs face this problem, how did you raise the funds to be able to do it the way that you want to do it?
We got a loan.
Yeah.
Our own money too. You know, they required that. So we got some advice. Brent knew some people that knew about raising funds for businesses, and they're like, well, basically it's your friends and family. That's all you're going to get for this kind of adventure. And because it's a restaurant, that is the riskiest business. And even banks hate restaurants. So it's a tough go.
It's a very tough business. They said 1 out of 10 restaurants survive in 3 or 4 years. That means out of 10 restaurants in the first years, 5 or 6 go out of business. And it goes, it's kind of like a rolling effect. So 2 more, and then 1 more, and then the last one. We knew what we wanted to do from the beginning. So we asked ourselves what would be the easiest. And, you know, we went to the bank and we got the SBA loan, which has helped us. But in order to fix the house, we went through 4 different companies, and they were beating. We got a quote first, which it was really expensive. And I told her, no. We're not going to pay this much. We're going to choose 3 companies. They need to all come in and create a proposal for us. And what are they going to do? How are they going to lower the price? 3 of those people came, really great folks, to talk to us, and we showed the property. And I think some of them was like, oh, these people are so crazy. How are they going to do that here? Because we talked to one company from local Latinos, and they never came back.
That's true.
They came once, and then
I forgot about that.
My friends, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why they came back, but that was fine. And then we figured out one of the companies that, funny enough, he goes to the same church where Lorie and Brent go every Sunday. Super, super great people to work with. He was able to lower the price a lot for us, and we went from there.
Brent, when Lorie came to you with this idea, what were your first thoughts? And what is your role in trying to help see this through?
My thoughts were the same as all the other people. This is crazy. But Lorie eventually convinced me that this is what she really wanted to do. And, you know, this has an academic element to it. So Lorie is a chemist. She's got a Berkeley degree, a master's degree, and a Furman master's degree in chemistry and toxicology. So she's always, you know, had the scientific element. And then her interest in food has always been there. My children can tell you that that's what brings them home, is mom's cooking. And actually, that's how our daughter Kirsten lured her husband. It was, yeah,
I can't cook, but my mom can.
they were at Furman eating dining hall food, and Kirsten said, "Well, come home for dinner. My mom cooks." And Michael was a very frequent guest at our table all the years that they were dating. But anyway, so and David's got this scientific background as well,
Right.
basically teaching himself chemistry. And so food and chemistry go together, and
Absolutely.
they realized that there was a synergy there. So I understood that Furman was not going to be the place that was going to really excite Lorie for the rest of her career. And you got to remember that we were in the downturn, the 2008, 2009, 2010, right. And a lot of the staff jobs, I mean, Lorie was running the chemistry lab in the ES department, but they weren't sure that her job was going to stay. And so she started looking around. So that's part of what was going on. But it's really this synergy between the scientific world and the food world that allowed them to go. So anyway, that's a long way of saying it's not that far out of Lorie's wheelhouse,
right,
to be thinking about doing something with food and something creative with food because of her scientific background. And then I would say the other important dimension that both Karen, Dr. Allen, and I bring is that we put food on our home tables while they're out putting food on the restaurant table. So in a lot of ways, if we had to make a living out of this restaurant in the first 2 years, you can ask David and Lorie whether that would be possible. But basically, I think Furman, provides a paycheck, and then they can do their thing. I don't know. Is that unfair, Lorie?
No, that's not unfair. I told him he had to keep his day job. Let's just put it that way.
So I can never retire. I mean, I'll be teaching at Furman at 90. I'll beat Charles Brewer, Willard Pate, and all the rest.
So it's just a matter as long as you can keep coming into work.
I'd have to wheel him in.
Yeah. David, I want to talk to you a little bit about, you're the executive chef. I want to talk to you a little bit about the roles, what that means to you as far as leadership in the business, and what your vision is on that.
Ooh.
I know it's a big term.
No. It's a great question. I think it's always start with a good attitude. No matter where, if you're not a leader, I think a lot of people, even though they know I'm the second or another business owner in this OKO Café business, they're always asking for answers, and most of the time I can say yes to those answers because I know a little bit about everything. But I try to showcase that working hard is it's a one way out of being in a good place to show people that you can do everything if you tell yourself you can do it. So what I try to do is always create recipes, try to teach people the right ways, be on the back and say, I got you, if you're not here, I can help you. If you ask me if I say no to things that I don't know, I never go into say no. I find a way how to do it. Because that's the way I was raised in my country, in Costa Rica. If you don't have an electrician, that's going to be you. If you figured out how to do it, if you get electrocuted, that's another thing you have to do. right? But it is always that kind of mindset of, I was taught from when I was 7 to butcher a pig and break down a pig when I was 7 in my farm. So there's always like me, I have to do that extra mile to get people do the extra mile with me. And sometimes it's not easy, just because I said the culture in the kitchen is very intense, is very stressed. I don't know why. I don't understand, because I have fun cooking, Lorie have fun cooking. Everybody else is that the other people just taking too much of what it means to cook. To cook is just to put things on the plate that are just awesome and very tasty. And that make you happy? I don't know. For me, yes, it does. It's a space where I escape and I'm trying to show people like, this is the way I show myself that I can do this every day.
Yeah.
And I was looking a way to tell myself, hey, today is a new day. We're gonna push this boat even hard today and then tomorrow to be the best, because at the end of the day, we're trying to be the best ourselves and best business in town. And but leader it's something that it comes with what you do. The roles, I do everything. If I
Right.
have to bake, I bake. The same way like Lorie, she had to make granola, she make granola. If I had to, you do everything. If you have to farm, we farm. We have to be a construction people, you have to do that, because
Right.
funds are very limited sometimes. So you don't want to spend money. So you put yourself in scenario that you're like, oh, I can do that. This, I didn't know that I can do this. So
Yeah. Many
but
hats in a small business.
exactly, that's what
Yeah.
you have to do. Most of our time is dealing with folks. I feel like I have a second big family
Right.
or as well. Like we had to deal with tempers and and we
Personality.
already won. Then we need to stay calm and
Right.
make people, But
Right. Basically, your work is your passion.
Mhm.
And Lorie, I kind of get that same idea from you because you've taken your chemistry degree and degrees, I should say, and your knowledge of food and all of that and how it all marries together. And you really have created something here, the farm to table, the farm specifically about growing your own food and how that all fits in together. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that is your passion?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying I know. I mean, I grew up surrounded by farms,
Right.
and my grandfather always had a garden on our land, and it's quite a big garden. We never could eat it all, but yes, I really wanted to. Yeah, I guess after working at Furman in the Earth Environmental Sciences Department and kind of partnering with some local organic farmers and seeing how they were really taking, bad soil and making it into living soil, increases the nutrition of and value of the food that is planted there by a lot. I just learned enough to know that where your food comes from is really important and how it's grown. And so the fact that we try to not only grow our own food, but to get to know our farmers and their practices and find out how they're treating either their plants or their animals, so we know where we get our eggs and where we get our pork and where we get our beef. We know that those animals are being, well treated, and they only have one day, as one of our farmers said, they only have one bad day. And we're just really passionate about hyperlocal and quality. And, you don't have to do a lot to food if it's high quality to make it taste great. We just want to showcase what our farmers do.
with that means we still support local farmers. We
Yes.
understood from the beginning that Oak Hill Cafe can do everything. So we said, we get potato from a local farm, sweet potatoes, squashes, but when we say hyper local, that means we only work on the South. We don't buy anything outside the South. Fish are come from a narrow area where they have ocean water.
Mhm.
We tried to do trout and catfish, but people were not into the catfish idea. They like fried, but they don't like it on the plate. We made a really good catfish when we opened, and I said, you can make fish taste great no matter where it comes from. I made a ceviche with catfish, and you didn't even taste of where it come from. So we tried really hard to understand what we're working with, how do we treat it with, and how do we make it beautiful on the plate, because that's the first thing we say. It has to be pretty and it has to taste incredible.
Yeah, we eat with our eyes first.
Exactly.
And so let's talk about COVID, because it was really hard, or is, I should say, probably still really hard on the restaurant industry.
Yes.
How did you guys make some pivots during COVID to stay afloat? Sadly, so many restaurants have had to close. So what kind of pivots did you guys make to stay afloat?
First of all, the stress in the kitchen. That was the first jump we had to juggle with. People were just, what are we going to do? Are you guys closing? What is this? And I said, please, calm down. We were both together. Like, we don't have an answer now. No one knows. First, it was something that just came out of the blue. No one was ready to deal with this. And we and Lorie was sitting, what are we going to do? We always do that. We look at each other in the office like, what are we going to do? Okay, I said, let's divide this into multiple steps. And we had a meeting with the sous chef, and the guys said, we have a lot of food in our cooler. What are we going to do? We're doing a tasting menu. We were closed on Wednesday. We had a tasting menu on
Saturday.
And it was packed. Like we had the whole full house full. So
People had put money down. We had to give all that back. We had to, figure out what to do with the food. Our farmers had just planted thousands of seedlings.
Everybody's asking, panicking. What do we do?
Right.
What are we going to do with all this food?
Right. So what did you do?
Let's open the online order and let's sell whatever we can sell. And then we don't sell anything, or we sell like 60, 80% when we have an inventory. The other 20%, you guys take it home, because more likely we're going to be closed. We opened for another week and we sold everything. And we kind of decided to do the same thing until they said, restaurant are shut down, you're not open. And then the last 5 to 6 weeks where we were closed, and Lorie and I, we went to work. We always say, hey, there's no reason to panic. I mean, we don't know anything. And then with the farm, I right away I said, you know what? COVID happens. Let's switch everything, all the energy to the farm, because that's going to be the saver for all the humankind. If we all farm a little bit, you don't have to stress and worry about, that if you don't have nothing to eat, because you can grow your potato, you can grow your sweet potatoes, squashes. And then,
so you pivoted to focus on the farm.
Yeah, that answered the farmers. We're going to push forward with 2,500 seedlings that we got. We're going to grow everything. You know what happened? We lost about 60% because they grow in the summer, they grow really fast. And we try to sell as much as we can. We try to utilize it and pickle and do preservative techniques to keep it.
Right.
At the end of the day, we had a bunch of greens in my house, and I may say this from Lorie's house, same thing, like, 2019. But it was a very interesting situation in the beginning. Lorie can tell you what happened after we closed for 5 weeks, because we made a decision to.
Yeah, Lorie, take it from there.
Let me jump in here.
Oh,
There's
sure.
one thing you have to remember, you have to know about that period of time is that the restaurant had just been named a James Beard semifinalist.
Right.
And so we were gearing up for what was to be a wave of people coming. And we, as they said, we had a packed out tasting menu coming up. People were calling for reservations. This was going to launch the restaurant into, profitability.
Right.
And then COVID hit. So we lost
3 weeks later.
All of that momentum was gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So most people would be completely disheartened by that. And I'm sure you guys were to a certain extent, but Lorie, what did you do after that? I mean, you have this great nomination. For those people who don't know, James Beard is one of the highest awards that chefs and restaurants can get. And so you're on the short list.
Yes. So after, I guess we didn't know how long it was going to take, or if they were going to allow us to reopen.
Right.
So, and Davi, you can jump in here because your memory is probably better. But so this was like April 2020, and the government started, coming around with, we're going to help you try to get through this. So everything that they offered, we applied for. So I spent a lot of time trying to dig through all the application processes, and we did get the first PPP loan, which the government didn't know what they were doing at the time either, by the way.
It's new to everybody.
So they were putting this money out there with rules that you had to use it in 8 weeks. Then unemployment was kicking in for all of our employees. And so it was very complicated because we had this money to use for payroll, but then our employees were making more money on unemployment because they were making, in addition to unemployment, the government was giving them $600 a week just to stay home. So for us, we were trying to pay people who weren't there. And David and I were basically trying to do everything. We were trying to set up sort of a CSA, the farm, sell of the produce, and also offering baked goods to people, because that was something we both felt like people wanted was, baked breads and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
basically we just had to take it a day at a time, and we've gotten every government offering just about. We just apply for everything.
Yeah.
And it has helped us make it through.
So that was enough to keep you afloat until you could open
Mhm.
back up again. COVID, I think, has given many of us time to slow down and reevaluate. So I wanted to ask you guys, with that time, and David might have just answered this, how did you reevaluate? Is this the outdoor or the space that you're going to use for events?
Yeah, so the outdoor space, we really want to be flexible with it, so we can use it. We try to make it so that it can be used for a lot of different things. So, I mean, it's not huge. It's nice because it's right by the farm. It's removed from the highway, and it's kind of, you can hear the birds, and so people can sit out there and do work, drink coffee. We hope to have Wi-Fi out there. We can have live music. We're thinking about open mics, maybe some local comedians come out, wine tasting, beer tasting, eventually maybe a wedding or two, small wedding. So we're really open. We're just trying to make it so that we can be flexible and, be open to the community for different things. And I think it's going to be a really nice place for people to come. So
Yeah.
right now we're not open as many hours as we were pre-COVID. So, but we're trying to make it as attractive as possible. So on Wednesday nights, we have a buy one, get one free glass of wine and then tapas. Our brunch is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're hoping to open Thursday pretty soon because we're getting more demand now. The demand just dropped off, so we had to make some tough decisions about which days to close. But yeah, so we're getting a lot more busy on Friday. We're very busy on Saturdays and Sundays for brunch. And then we have our full dinner menu on Fridays and Saturday nights from 5 to 8 p.m.
Talk about the tasting menus too.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I want David to elaborate on that. But our showcase, what people really like about us is that we were doing like a monthly or bi-monthly tasting menu, which is something that nobody else in town does. And so we try to showcase things from the farm, local products, to really innovative cooking techniques to get people to try a lot of different things that they've never tried before. So our courses, we have up to 20 courses and maybe 5 wine pairings along with that dinner. We start with small bites and we move up a little bit and then go back down. And so the amount of food isn't as much as you would think on 20 courses. We've had 1 or 2 people kind of go into a food coma, but in general, most people don't have trouble finishing the food. So
It's a make work program for Uber because the glasses of wine definitely mount up. And so we get a train of Uber cars going through at the end of the night.
That's good. You're adding to the economy.
Yes, that's idea. Well, tasting menus, it's about like showcase even more hyper local ingredients. Sometimes we do very creative way to approach a recipe. Sometimes we just use a cooking technique to showcase the cooking technique on the ingredient. One of the rules in our Café is you work with something edible, you have to figure out how to use the whole plant or the whole animal or the whole fruit. Right? So when we work with ingredient, we ask what other part of the plant is edible and how do we treat it? So when the tasting menu we work, it's about the ingredient. So we start with the ingredient and it flows around back to the ingredient. So if we're making something with tomato, it's going to be tomatoes. We call tomatoes caviar the seeds, tomatoes seeds, and then you make a tomato broth and you make a confit and then you put little flavors because it's about the tomato. Or we don't do anything. So the tasting menu is to really showcase how our minds work. And it may be a little bit different from the brunch menu, but we still think, how do we make the brunch menu not really weird and complicated, but a little bit more simple. The biggest thing we're trying to do is understand our customer. We are based in customer happiness. And when you understand that, it becomes a relationship.
That may be just the best advice you just gave. And I was going to ask you an advice question, but to build that relationship with your customers is huge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You're making an
Oh,
offer to
yes.
all of our listeners. Can you tell them about that? Because you guys are in for a treat.
Yes, so we have a discount at Oak Hill. I don't know if that's very aware, people are aware of that, but if you're a Furman associated person, we give you 10% discount during brunch. And so we're all also offering that for our Wednesday night buy one, get one tapas dinner. So if you'd like to come out and try us, we'd love to have you.
So mention that you heard this on the Classy podcast. When you go into
Yes.
the restaurant, mention that you heard the podcast episode, the Classy podcast episode, where we were talking to the owners of Oak Hill Cafe and Farm, and you will get your 10% discount. And I will tell you, I will be at tapas night.
We'll be happy to give people a tour on the farm and they want to come and see what we really do there. We're very holistic. We think about everything.
So get your 10%, take a tour of the farm, see what they do, and then help us spread the word, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Guys,
Word of mouth is best.
yes, word of mouth is absolutely best. Before I let you go, before we wrap up completely, and correct me if I'm wrong in this. So you got the James Beard nomination, and so, but then they canceled that 2019 or 2020 because of COVID. But
Right.
now you are a James Beard winner as far as the restaurant goes, right? You're on the top 30 list.
Yes, technically we are a semifinalist.
Yeah.
Best new restaurant for 2020, which is only 30 restaurants that they chose for that. So that is our award.
I think we are a winner because
He's
all
been-
30, no, I think that's what happened. I think all 30, they never got, I mean, they got a list of 10 restaurants where they chose, but they never got to the point they said, this is the winner. I feel like all 30 deserve to be winners because what we do is a big push for this country. I think
Right.
it's not only for
We don't know how many of those 30 are still operating, you know?
No, that's even right. You're very right. There's so many restaurants, even very, very fine dining restaurant, to close the door forever. So
right.
we're still here and we're going to be here because our goal is to be open for 50 years or more.
There you go.
Well, if James Beard ever fires up again, I am sure that David will get some more nominations for Best Chef because that's who he is. He really is probably one of the best or the best chef in Greenville for sure.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us for the Classy podcast. It's such a pleasure to talk to each of you, and I can't wait to come out to the cafe and have a glass of wine with you, you know?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Classy listeners, I hope you enjoyed that conversation just as much as I did. Such a great conversation, and to learn about all of our, you know, our faculty and professors and their families who are creating businesses, which of course is one of our main focuses here on the Classy podcast. Again, this podcast is brought to you through the partnership between Furman Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to yours. And I also want to let you know that this podcast is produced by student producers. So this is a true example of the Furman advantage here at Furman University. Again, I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Until next time, dream big, everybody.